welcome to Found in Translation, a weekly-ish exploration of one fellow's translation of the Christian scriptures, one chapter or three at a time. I'm Brandon Rhodes, and across the internet from me is the translator himself, Brandon Johnson. Hi, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
Our guest co-host today is Avery Arden. Avery is a genderqueer autistic minister in Atlanta whose work proclaims the holiness and agency of trans and disabled people. Joined from both Catholic and Reformed traditions, their theology is incarnational, Trinitarian, and rooted in breaking binaries. They serve on the board of More Light Presbyterians and use they, them, zir pronouns. And of course, you've heard them many times on The Word in Black and Red. Avery, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I was so excited when I got the invitation.
Yeah, we were on the same a couple of the same episodes as you for The Word in Black and Red, so it's like let's keep this going.
Yeah, yeah. It was an easy just transition. Like let's keep rolling with it.
I appreciate it.
Before we dive into the text, I want to ask a couple initial questions. What are you scheming on these days? Like, what's kind of got your mind and heart buzzing?
That's a fun question. When it comes to theological work, because a lot of my brain is sort of over in like gardening land, which, you know, is fun in its own right. But when it comes to theology, I'm currently working on revamping one of my websites, which blessedarethebinarybreakers.com. It's where I post my podcast feed. But I also have a timeline of sort of gender diversity, trans resonant history across scripture and then throughout Christian history. And it's a little bit of a mess. And I've been meaning to sort of rework it for a long time. So I'm working on that right now, which is always very nourishing for me to see like that, you know, there's been signs of us all throughout history that we've always been here and that we are beloved.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it. Second question. What's your relationship with the Bible been like, and how does it feel these days?
So as for those who don't know, autistic people often have what are called special interests. I like to call them specialized interests because at least for me, it's become a very scholarly thing where the Bible is my specialized interest. And so that's been true since I was like 6 years old and had like, you know, picture book Bibles and stuff. I've just always been so intrigued by the stories and the themes, with, you know, some variation as I grew up. I am really lucky, I feel like, that I didn't have any like formal Catholic education. I went to public schools, and I like that because that means I sort of learned my own way of reading the Bible that is very like it's Catholic in how it's done, but I didn't get some of the messages that might have come with it, where taking a scholarly approach, definitely not a literal approach. So that in college, when I started realizing I was queer, it wasn't a huge shock or like difficulty for me to bring that into how I read scripture and into my understanding of God, the way it can be for a lot of like my ex-evangelical friends who were taught that, you know, it's literally the word of God and you can't bring stuff into it, etc. But yeah, I've always loved scripture. I feel like the Bible and Catholic saints have been the two things that sort of kept me tied to Christianity when the people sure were doing their best to push me out. So yeah, and I mean, the Bible will drive me up a wall a lot of the time, right? Like there's so much in it that pisses me off, but that's part of any relationship, is getting to fight with it a bit.
That, so my wife is Catholic, and like she grew up in a more conservative end of the Catholic world. And it's so remarkable how differently fundamentally she grew up learning the Bible, learning it for sure. But like all the hangups that evangelical land gives, like even if they're both conservative flavors of the faith, just gives you different residues, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating. Like you pick up some bad stuff, but I personally am very glad I was raised Catholic and not evangelical because some of that, like, it feels a little easier to sort of move into, you know, this. Well, I mean, for one thing, liberation theology largely started in Catholic groups in Latin America. So I think that helps, right? That, we've got that big foundation.
It's an easier transition there.
Yeah.
You get the mystics and contemplative. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also queer. It's
Love
so
it.
ridiculously queer, especially the mystics.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's jump into some specialized interest conversation here.
Yeah.
We are going to be talking this week about Matthew chapters 16 through 18. And as with all episodes this season, we're doing that through a particular focus on reading it from a context of authoritarianism, as a text against authoritarianism, written under imperial occupation. It's a complicated story, but we're looking at it through that lens this season. So for those of you listening and watching, if you haven't had a chance to read Brandon's translation, the Liberation and Inclusion translation, we're going to have it up on the screen here momentarily on YouTube. And if you're listening, we highly encourage you to read it through a link we're going to have in the episode notes. So be sure to check out the footnotes as well. There's quite a few of them, and they get nerdy. So hit pause if you need to. Give it a read. We'll be here. All right, so let's start in Matthew 16. Brandon, seems like we should start maybe around verse 13. You want to read that first? Actually,
yeah.
the bulk of the chapter.
Yeah, I'll start here and go through the end of the chapter. Jesus was arriving in the region of Caesarea Philippi when he asked his students, "Who do people say the Son of Humanity is?" "Some say John the Immerser," they said. "Others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But who do you say I am?" he asked. Then Simeon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the God who is alive." Jesus responded to him, "You have reason for gratitude, Simeon, son of Jonah, because flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you, but rather my Father who is in the heavens. And I am naming you Peter, and on this rock I will construct my assembly, and the entrance to the place of the dead will not overwhelm it. I will give you the keys of the heavenly reign, and whatever boundaries you set in the land will be set in the heavens, and whatever barriers you remove in the land will be removed in the heavens." Then he made it clear to the students that they were not to tell anyone he was the Messiah. From then on, Jesus began to help his students see that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem to endure many things from the elders, lead priests, and Bible scholars, and to be killed and then woken up on the third day. Peter took him aside and began to scold him fiercely. "God have mercy on you, Lord! That must not happen to you." So he turned and told Peter, "Get out of my sight, adversary. You're an obstacle for me because you're not focusing on God's intentions, but rather on human ones." Then Jesus told his students, "If any of you is determined to follow me, renounce your insistence on security, pick up your cross, and join me. You see, whoever secures their life will surrender it, and whoever surrenders their life for my cause will secure it. You see, how does it benefit someone to gain the whole world, only to be stripped of their very being? Or what could someone offer to be able to keep their very being? The Son of Humanity is about to make his appearance with his messengers with the praise of his Father, and then he will repay each person appropriately for what he has done. Honestly, some of the people standing right here are ones who will not experience death before they see the Son of Humanity being established in his reign." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God.
Good stuff.
Yeah, and right out the gate, it's a political question.
Mm.
And it's not a confession of you're the second person of the Trinity. It's
No. Yeah, Messiah being anointed. The Hebrew for anointed, Christos is the Greek for anointed. Anointed being referring to rubbing oil on somebody as a symbol of their appointment to a particular office, like usually king, sometimes priest or prophet in scripture. It's being appointed by God for that role.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, this chapter is about asking the question of, the very political question of what does Messiah or Christus mean to Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
Because with the historical context, we can know that, and Peter's response, right, that the disciples seem to have a very different view of what it
Yes.
means, and that causes some tension.
Right. Some harsh words, in fact. Yeah.
yeah. How would you characterize that? Like how the disciples see him
Um,
or see what he should be?
I think they're seeing him the way they were raised to see the Messiah, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. This story takes place just in the previous chapter, right? He fed the 4,000 with some loaves and fishes, and then earlier in this chapter, he was having a heated discussion, as he often does, with Pharisees and Sadducees who want a sign. I think this coming out of that makes a lot of sense to me, that he just performed a sign that you would think would be pretty cool, but the Pharisees and Sadducees are, I guess, not. They don't see the feeding of 4,000 people as the sign they're looking for. And I feel like the disciple, or I like how you translate it, students. Jesus's students are hoping for a similar sign, something that isn't just, something very cool like feeding people, but is a little more revolutionary, as if feeding people isn't, but y'all know what I mean, what they are expecting revolution to look like. And I really can't blame them. I don't blame them for hoping that he's here to overturn Rome in this very literal sense of ushering a new political realm that doesn't involve subjugation under an empire.
Right. I mean, it makes sense to deeply long for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that he's not holding a sword but a baguette is not what they were looking for.
Yeah, not the revolution they were raised to expect. And I think that's why there's this there's this tension between Jesus and Peter in particular. I feel like that makes sense, as he's the oldest of the students. He has this most ingrained in him. He has seen the most shit from Rome. He has endured, more years of occupation than the others. Do we agree? Is that that Peter is potentially a good bit older than a lot of the other students? Is that okay? That's what I tend to hear. Yeah, just because he has a mother-in-law, and in a little bit we'll see that he's the one that Jesus is go pay the tax, or that.
Yeah,
that
he's the grown-up.
Yeah, he and Jesus are essentially sometimes put into this. They're the two dads trying to rein in these other guys. And Peter's not very good at. He's the fun dad. He's always running off and getting overexcited. But
but impulsive dad.
What if we ran to the tomb?
Yeah.
Okay. I find it interesting that he doesn't ask him who do you think the Messiah is. He doesn't ask who do you think the Son of God is. He asks, who do you think the Son of Man is? This character from Daniel, right? That represents, is kind of metonymus for the people of Israel in these sort of apocalyptic tales, who is slain by the final empire and then is vindicated by God as the empires are brought low and brought to heel. He's asking who's the Son of Man is an apocalyptic character who dies and yet is vindicated. And so to fuse that with Peter's I'm just going to switch the last word in your title there to the Messiah, Son of God. It's an interesting leap. I know some people were musing about that, but
I see what you mean.
Well, this double entendre with Son of Man, Son of Humanity, where it was also used Ezekiel in the Psalms to just be a really fancy way of saying me. So it has this double meaning of that Daniel reference, but also just kind of a really poetic, prophetic way of talking about yourself. And so I think Jesus is leaning on that Daniel reference, and Peter's you're just saying me in a really fancy way, right?
Oh, that's fair. Yeah. And also in places like Ezekiel, am I right in thinking that what would it be in Hebrew? Bar Ha'adam or something? The Son of Humanity is often emphasizing mortality in a way that it's me, a person who, is finite compared to God, who is not. And so again, Jesus is asking about this Son of Humanity who is textually finite and going to die. And I hadn't thought about how that Simon Peter's answer is to equate that with being the Messiah, and then he's bringing all that baggage into his interpretation.
Right.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
he's
And then
he's still he gets it right enough that Jesus gets really excited about it. Which is for me why I like to use this text when I'm doing workshops with churches on how to be more welcoming of trans folk. I like to start with this passage because it reads a lot to me. It resonates a lot as a certain kind of coming out story. Even just from the very first verse when it says that Jesus asked his disciples, who people say the Son of Humanity whom people say the Son of Humanity is, the verb there is like, it's a form of asking that has a lot of like feeling to it. He's entreating them. Like he's gone from his discussion with Pharisees and Sadducees where like, there's an audience to this discussion. And now he's just with his friends and it's become really personal. That like the reason he's asking this question is different than why he was, asking questions of the folks in the previous passage. That this time it's to friends, and he's really, I read it as having like, he's really hoping they get it right because it means a lot to him. And so when Simon Peter does seem to get it right, he hears Son of Humanity and he's like, oh, that's you. He's not wrong. And you're also the Messiah. And Jesus is like, you got it. Like, yes, thank you. Like,
gold star.
yeah. You figured it out.
Kind of think it's a relief for him.
Yeah.
He's because in this same passage he starts talking about, I'm gonna have to die. Right. And so he's like, my time is running short. Do you get it yet?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Y'all tend to be a little slow on the uptake. Have you figured this part out yet? Please say yes. Yeah. And the way Jesus is so excited and happy about it that he levels up Peter's relationship with him, where he gives Simon Peter the name Peter, which is kind of funny to me because usually if someone comes out as trans to you, they tell you a new name to call them, and instead Peter gets the new name. But but that makes sense, like that their relationship has altered in a positive way, that Jesus is going to trust Peter with a little more than he has before, and then Peter ruins it.
Briefly. Like total face plant.
Yeah, because Jesus starts saying what Messiah means to him, and Peter immediately is like, that is not what it means. How could you say that? And like, again, he's saying it out of concern. He's I like how you translate the like heaven forbid type phrase of, oh yeah, God have mercy on you, Lord. Just basically being like, I don't want that to happen to you. Stop saying that's what Messiah means to you. Like, why? And it really reminds me of, in particular, when I told my mom that I was trans, non-binary, genderqueer, whatever. And her response was acceptance, some confusion. She hadn't heard of non-binary before, which, to be fair, like a lot of folks hadn't. This was also like a decade ago. And her main concern was just like, well, what are people going to think? Are you going to suffer because of it? And she didn't want the answer to be yes. She didn't want me to be trans if it meant other people were going to hurt me. And I feel that from Peter here.
There's some grief there.
Yeah.
Some fear.
He's like, hang on, no, it can't mean that. And I got pretty mad at my mom when it turned out that's how like that. I was excited she accepted me. And then I, got frustrated when it turned out she didn't really fully understand. And especially not just her, but like most people in my life, like, and I know I'm by no means the only trans person to experience this, that people will respond with support, and that's awesome, but they'll keep misgendering you over and over and over again. And so they support you, and they know in their head what you need from them and what you're saying to them. They know in their head what trans means, but they haven't actually really internalized that in the rest of who they are, that like what that means and what that means for you personally and your relationship with them. Because to me, it's again with the disciples of, you have all this baggage about what Messiah means. I think in our society, you have all this baggage about what gender means. And we're all steeped in it from birth. It's really hard to sort of learn that your whole life and then have these moments where people are saying that gender stuff you learned is bullshit. This binary isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
And you might go, okay, well, I can memorize that for this one person. This one person in my life wants me to call them they instead of he or she. I can figure that out. But if you haven't actually done the work to explode gender in your head and really start practicing looking at the world through an anti-gender binary lens, you're going to keep misgendering that one person. You haven't actually done the work to support them because it's a lot deeper than just a pronoun.
Yeah. It makes me think of repentance or metanoia, that
Yeah.
transformation of the mind. It's not just change this one behavior, it's transform the entire way your mind thinks about things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or like Jesus saying to Peter, you're setting your mind not on things of God, but human things, right? That binaries are a very human and imperialist way of thinking, that everyone
Mm-hmm.
needs to fit in one of two rigid categories so we can tell who's the oppressor and who's the oppressed, who gets to, rule and who gets to be conquered. And don't you dare step out of that or expose the fact that these are fake boxes, because that's a danger to empire. It's really hard to actually fully undo that notion in your head, including for trans people. Like, it's not like we
Yeah.
magically didn't absorb all of that binary thinking. We do too. I
Yeah.
think
I
we
think for
just,
most of us, it's a lifelong project.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I appreciate this story as a way of telling people, because, like, one of the main things people who want to be supportive will sort of say is like, and I get a little frustrated, but when I'm in my teaching hat, I'm nice, where a lot of times immediately when people meet me and like they know I'm trans, they're like, they start telling me about like the one trans person in their life, and oh yeah, this one time, like, I support them, but this one time I accidentally said their old name and they just blew up at me. And I'm like, why is this the conversation that gets had every time? It puts me in a weird position where I'm supposed to what, comfort them, absolve them? I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Cis
important.
fragility.
Yeah, for real. Of like, I'm such a good ally. I want to be supportive. So why were they so mean to me? Well, we see here with Jesus, like, sometimes anger and frustration is kind of merited.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, it's not as much about like you and your one mistake as it is about this system that just keeps on hurting a person. And so like when
Yeah.
people, when queer people or any marginalized person acts like that, like frustrated because you made what to you is a small mistake, like, there's a whole story behind that, um, that, you know, it's important to sort of examine and do what Peter does, which is not go away and sulk, but stick with them, right? To not
Mm-hmm.
abandon the
Mm-hmm.
relationship, to go, oh well, they hate me now, so I guess we're not friends anymore. But to say, I
Right.
mean, honestly, Peter doesn't even really say anything here, but we know from his future actions that he sticks by Jesus and he learns more and more about what Messiah really means to Jesus.
Right.
And yeah, look at where they end up. He's he's one of the head apostles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's like one of the
He's,
four like lead characters of Mediterranean Christianity.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. He certainly does pick up his own cross. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jesus could, in good faith, turn to him and say, effectively, Peter, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck, man?
Like, that might have been
Yeah.
nicer than like, not today,
Yeah.
Satan.
Yeah,
I
for
mean,
real.
his words here are even stronger than how he addresses Satan in chapter 4. So before it's just
Mm,
like, get away. This is like, get away behind me. Like, it adds even more
mm,
emphasis of like, I don't even want to see you. Don't just leave. Just like walk away, but while you walk, go that way so I don't have to look at you.
yeah.
Uh,
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, he's put his hand to the plow, as he says at one point, and he's wrestling with the sobriety of where this is going to take him. And if you read the diaries of like Dr. King and those who were close to him, the inevitability of his murder was something that he had to shake through daily, to hold. Why would we expect anything different from Christ?
Yeah. Which is very much that fits what Jesus says about taking up your cross and following him. I used to hate this passage because people will use it as a way to say, like, oh, this thing is your cross to bear. You're just meant to suffer this thing, whatever it is. For queer people, it's often, oh, yeah, you have same-sex attraction. Well, that's just your cross to bear. You're not supposed to act on it. And it's like, where do you read that into a text about a cross, which is a Roman tool of torture?
Yeah.
It's not
Torture and
something,
execution.
yeah, like it's not something from God. It's not something that God puts on us to like learn a lesson or something. It is when you follow Jesus, you have to accept the fact that empire is not going to be happy with you about that, and you are going to be, punished. It's a cause and effect thing, not a God wants you to suffer thing.
Crosses are not things God puts on people. They're things that empires put people on.
Yes, yeah. Good way to put it. Absolutely.
They've got it backwards, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing up that angle on this verse because, I think as a het fella, like, I also, like, we all in different ways, and if we grew up in anywhere near conservative Christianity, that is weaponized to shame and to, try to dignify sacrifice, but it's so toxic and so abusive, and like to your point, not what the Bible is fucking saying here.
Well, and it's just I see it used a lot also, like to say basically accept your oppression. I can't look at this and not think about, and I'm sure once y'all get to the actual crucifixion stories in Matthew, and you've probably talked about it a lot before, but like, what does the crucifixion mean when it comes to like substitutionary atonement? Is suffering glorified here? I immediately think of black theologian black womanist theologian Dolores Williams and her idea of surrogate suffering, that when people say this stuff for her in her experience to Black women, it's a way of saying, look, yeah, this is just your cross to bear. The fact that even among the most marginalized, you are marginalized for further, that you have to uphold the suffering of Black men and white women and just all of society. Everything is being put on you. You are mammy to everyone. You are a scapegoat for everyone. That's just your cross to bear. That's a horrible thing to say. To say like, yeah, it sucks. And maybe in this case, you're not saying it's of God, but you're saying it's inevitable. And therefore, don't try to do something about it. And there's no way that's what Jesus meant. Like, there's just no way, given the rest of his whole story, that that's what he wanted out of this passage.
Yeah. Yeah, it strikes me that the people who say those kinds of things are the ones trying to place a cross on you. It's what receives a cross is standing up against injustice, advocating for the liberation of those who are oppressed. That leads to receiving a cross, and you don't want to be the one putting it on someone.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Probably not. Especially in, is it the next chapter, where that might be like putting a millstone around your neck and going into the sea.
Yeah, let's go there. Let's
turn
the page.
6 days later, Jesus brought Jacob, his brother John, and Peter up a high mountain with him to a secluded place. There he transformed before their eyes. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes glowed bright like the light. Then, incredibly, they saw Moses and Elijah talking with him. Peter responded by saying to Jesus, "Lord, it's wonderful for us to be here. If you want, I'll set up 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, amazingly, a bright cloud enveloped them, and remarkably, a voice from the cloud said, "This is my beloved Son. I delight in him. Listen to him." When they heard the voice, the students were terrified and dropped with their faces to the ground. Jesus went to them and touched them. "Get up," he reassured them. "Don't be afraid." So they looked up and saw no one else was there except Jesus. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus directed them, "Don't tell anyone about the vision until the Son of Humanity is woken up from among the dead." The students asked him, "So why do the Bible scholars say that Elijah has to come first?" He answered, "Elijah does come and will restore everything. I'm telling you, Elijah already came, and they didn't recognize him. Instead, they did whatever they wanted to him. In the same way, the Son of Humanity is about to endure what they have in store for him." Then the students put together that he was talking about John the Immerser. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to
To
God.
God.
So Jesus can glow
Apparently.
with
But it's a secret.
with his undead homies.
Yeah. Yep. So unlike Moses, where it faded over time, Jesus can just like turn it off and on at will, apparently.
Like a light switch.
I got that reference.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, again, I can't help but relate this to trans experience, and not just because it's the transfiguration, though that helps.
It should. I mean, that certainly helps.
But just the idea that this happens, I mean, basically a week after Jesus first sort of has his coming out, where he's telling them that, yeah, I'm the Son of Humanity. Yeah, I'm the Messiah. Here's a bit about what that means. And it's not great news, right? There's this suffering. But then he takes the besties of the besties, right? The sort of these three that maybe he's closest to. Maybe there's another reason he chooses them. But it's a very select group that he's like, I also want you to see the joy of it, right? Like, I've told you that it's kind of gonna, like, being a Messiah, the Messiah is kind of sucky. Like, there's a lot that the world will do to me because of it. But I want you to see the joy too. I want you to glimpse that. And to me, that's just, it's really beautiful, because, like, anytime I am allowed, or I'm sort of privileged to glimpse the joy and the truest form of a friend, whether that's queer joy or disabled joy, or just like joy in general, like that they don't normally get the chance to share. It really feels like such an honor, and it feels like a little glimpse of the kingdom of God that they're letting me see. And it can't last forever, because the world, again, like, like the world kind of tries its best to beat this stuff out of us, to get rid of that joy, but it's there. And I think knowing it's there, even during the really hard stuff, sort of helps you get through it.
Yeah, there's light in the darkness, very literally here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that contrast with, like, okay, yeah, being the Messiah has this grave thing that Peter is panicking about.
Yeah.
In part out of love for his friend. And yeah, go to pride festivals, y'all. See queer joy. It's outrageous and delightful and an absolute blast.
That's exactly what I was thinking of when Peter is like, it's great, we're here. I'll make tents for us, because the festival of booths, right? These tents he's setting up, invoking the festival of booths, is one of the big, like, party times in like of the Jewish year. This is a celebration, and he recognizes that. He's like, oh, it's party time. So he's a little confused, but he's got the spirit.
Yep.
It's a good summary, Peter.
Yeah, it very much feels like a parent trying to be supportive of a queer kid, of being like, I will go to the parade with you, and oh my, what is going on over there? It's great. Like, just being very confused but ready for whatever comes.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a good way to be.
And then they come on down from the mountain. When they reached the crowd, someone went up to him, fell to his knees, and pleaded, "Lord, have compassion for my son, because he is moonstruck and suffers miserably. He's constantly falling into the fire or the water." I brought him to your students, but they weren't able to heal him." In response, Jesus lamented, "What a faithless and misguided group! How much longer will I be with you? How long will I be here to carry you through things like this? Bring him to me." Then Jesus denounced the demon, and it left the boy, who was healed from that moment on. Then the students came to Jesus privately and asked, "Why weren't we able to banish it?" "Because of your lack of trust," he told them. "Honestly, I'm telling you, if you have trust, even as small as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it'll move. There won't be anything you're incapable of." When Jesus and his students joined up with each other in Galilee, Jesus told them, "The Son of Humanity is about to be given up into human hands, and they will kill him, and he will be woken up on the third day." And they were deeply saddened.
They're probably like, "Jesus, how many times are you going to bring this up?"
Yeah. It's getting awkward.
Yeah.
Lord.
Don't get too happy, guys.
Oh, man. Yeah. And this 17 here, "What a faithless and misguided group. How much longer will I be with you? How long will I be here to carry you through things like this?" It makes me think of back in the last chapter. He's like, "Do you get it yet? I don't have a lot of time left." And they like sort of get it. Not quite, but they sort of do.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, I thought you had it. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of time left. You've got to get it here."
Yeah. Oh,
I think there's real grief in it. Yeah, I don't think it's like anger exactly. I mean, some frustration, I think, but I think it's largely like, shit, I don't have time for this.
Yeah. Like, y'all are going to be on your own soon, and I need to know you can handle it. That's always a scary thing, right? To have a project that, you know, you're like, to have to rely on other people. Maybe this is me showing myself for like a group project hater. But it's really hard to trust something that you're passionate about with other people, because what if they do it wrong?
Yeah. And they probably will. To your opinion, anyway, or to my opinion, like it's not exactly how I would do it.
I mean, look at what has happened to Jesus's message.
Oh, we have been a disappointment, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now I'm going to bring in disability theology, and I'll try not to rant.
Please rant.
But yeah, it's my other great passion. Trans stuff and disabled stuff. You can't shut me up about it. But this is just I could rant for hours and hours about the healing narratives as a whole, and how overall, like, they are extremely dangerous and have been misused horrifically for disabled folks across Christian history, including today and including in progressive spaces. Ableism is absolutely something that even the most leftist groups often sort of forget to address, which is extremely frustrating. But yeah, so this one's such a weird one, right? That this kid is moonstruck and he keeps falling into fire and water. What is going on here? Yeah. And I mean, I don't know the answer besides, right? People say maybe it's epilepsy, and then how did the ancient world see epilepsy? As a lot of times that demons are going on. He doesn't. Okay, it does bring. Yeah, it. I find it interesting that the dad doesn't bring up a demon. Maybe moonstruck implies it, but he technically doesn't. But then the author of the text clearly interpreted it as that, because then in 18, Jesus gets the demon to leave the boy. So I was kind of looking into that earlier, and I found this book by Gillian Engelhardt called Matthew, Disability and Stress, Examining Impaired Characters in the Context of Empire, which I'm absolutely going to read. This is the only bit I've read, but it sounds really cool. But she says that this is one of the passages, again, a lot of stuff in Matthew, y'all just had an episode with the folks who are among the graves with demons in them, and the demons getting chased into pigs, and how this is like this greater cosmic conflict involving, you know, Rome. She says it's the same here, that being moonstruck was related to the goddess Selena, or Selene, I think in English is how people usually say it, but she's the moon goddess, and as like she curses people sometimes. She does for whatever reason, her power can curse you in this way, and that's how a lot of people understood things like seizures. And so she says Jesus sort of demonstrating control over someone moonstruck is a way of demonstrating that God has control over these other gods, right? That the Greco-Roman gods are nothing compared to Jesus.
Yeah, sounds reminiscent to the plagues in Exodus of taking all the things that are supposedly these Egyptian gods having control over, and it's like, nope.
Yeah.
God's got control over it.
Yeah. Yeah, and she sort of she mentions that some ancient doctors, like medical folks of this time, didn't think that seizures and epilepsy type symptoms are demon caused, which is nice to know, right? That there were multiple views in the ancient world. And that a lot of doctors were like, no, there's something like there's something inside the person going on. It's not like an outside force. But the popular belief was the demonic thing. And so she talks about this invasion model, that while Rome or other like colonizing forces are invading the land, sort of having this focus on what is seen as the invasion of demons into your body like this is sort of in microcosm what's happening to your whole people group, which I find really interesting.
Yeah. So even this is meant to be a liberation from an oppressive force.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, and like maybe this is a way to say, like, so yes, Peter, I am here to sort of, you know, have this revolution against Rome. It's not going to look the way you think it is, but I am, you know, it's almost more about the colonization of the mind, right? That he's saying, look, I'm not going to overthrow Rome for y'all, but I can help you decolonize your minds. And that matters.
Yeah, if the abolition movement is getting the cop out of your head, the Jesus movement includes getting the centurion out of your head, getting the Caesar out of your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just occurred to me that the comparison with Elijah and Moses, like thinking through what those two people actually did, like Elijah was the one challenging oppression from leader within their own people group, which is a lot like what John the Baptist was doing. And then Moses was the one who challenged oppression from an outside people group.
Well, that's really fun. Yeah,
connects with Rome. Yeah.
And Jesus is doing both a lot of the time. Like
True.
Yeah,
that's fun.
The previous episode showing that the Canaanite woman story of like being the fulcrum, the pivot point of the whole gospel here is precisely that inflection from like abundance and faithfulness within, expanding and bleeding out to all people, right? So we're going to be doing some Moses work and we're going to be doing some Elijah work here.
Yeah.
Yep, both. Yeah. All the oppressors need to be stopped.
Or join the party.
Right?
I mean, that's how they're stopped, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so all of this, like, this bigger sort of global scale for things, and it's all being symbolized by this little boy's body mind, which is gross. It's really, really bad. And like, so I can't not bring up the fact that the Bible is ableist, and there's no way to sugarcoat that, and there's no way to defend or justify it. The ancient world was as ableist as our world today, just different flavors show up, and different languages used. But to this is something the Bible does nonstop, and it's something we do in our language today. That, oh, I was blind to this thing, or oh, that's so lame. The way we use this language, that is related to disability to mean bad things. That's all over the Bible, right? That being blind means you're spiritually ignorant. Being deaf to God means that you're, again, being willfully ignorant. And yeah, that this boy's whatever's going on, whether it's seizures or something else, is being used as a symbol. He isn't a person in this story. The author, the way this is written, this boy isn't really a boy. Like he's this microcosm of the colonization of a people group. And that's not okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting narratively, but if this was a real boy, it's not okay. Like,
right.
It objectifies him.
Yeah. If anyone's
Absolutely.
interested, there's a really, really good book. It's not a Christian, it's like a secular book, but it's called Feminist Queer Crip by Alison Kafer. And it's like a collection of essays that are all about how the way we talk about disability, and then also queerness and women's bodies and stuff, how we talk about this stuff impacts like the real lived experiences of people, and makes it impossible to imagine a good future for yourself if you belong to one of those groups. Because especially disability being made, like disability is used as shorthand as a symbol of no future or no good future. That like say you become paralyzed, your life's over then. Like that, the way disability is used in our stories and language, that's the implication. And so like sort of fighting that when we see it in our own world and when we see it in scripture, I feel like is really important. Not to, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox, but
no, let's
Yeah.
let's all stay on our soapboxes.
They're good boxes.
Okay. Yeah. Should we read the last little story in Matthew 17?
Sure. After they arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the temple tax approached Peter and asked, "Doesn't your teacher pay the half-shekel tax?" "Yes," he told them. Simple answer. After he went into the house, Jesus spoke first and said, "What do you think, Simeon? From whom do the kings in the land collect fees and tributes? From their own family or from foreigners?" So Peter answered, "From foreigners." Then Jesus stated, "Then their children are exempt. However, so that we don't provoke them, go over to the lake and cast a hook. Take the first fish that comes up, and when you open its mouth, you'll find a 1 shekel coin. Take that to give them for me and you." The word of the Lord.
Sweet to God.
Mostly what I'm seeing here is just like, yeah, they are in fact also oppressing us, their own people, and pick your battles a little bit. Like stand up for the things that matter, and just don't provoke them unnecessarily. General thing that I'm seeing there. Anything I'm missing?
It's just such a weird story, the fish
It
thing.
is. The fish thing, yeah.
It's in his top 2 or 3 weirdest miracles.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Like spit in the mud and this are like, okay.
It
Cool,
also,
Josh.
there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of old folk tales that have to do with like, oh no, I lost my ring, a fish ate it, I have to find the fish. Like, I don't know if this was, maybe it's drawing on some ancient folklore stuff, who knows, but
yeah.
Could be, yeah.
It always bothered me. I don't like this story. I don't like Jesus paying his taxes to an oppressive group, but then again, I also pay my taxes to an oppressive country. So
True.
Yeah.
I mean, that definitely challenges, I think, the moral ecology that we ascribe to our agency. That sounded like jargony gibberish. Let me try that again.
Explain.
Yeah. Culpability and complicity and committing something are all distinguishable things, right? Like Jesus presumably made houses for people when he was a carpenter that were misogynistic, that had enslaved people, that were Roman occupiers. Like, it's reasonable to assume these things, and yet the historic confession is he didn't deviate, he didn't sin. So the question of like, oh, man, sometimes you got to pay your fucking taxes to just like get by. Like, we're all under something, and like for me, I'll put it in the first person here. As I in my 20s was getting more and more convicted about the kind of foods our food system is built around, the way those animals are treated, where we get our clothing and day-to-day needs at companies like Walmart that exploit and disempower working class neighbors. I took that conviction to also become moralizing and self-righteous and judging people who were working 2 jobs and just needed a fucking cheeseburger on their way home because they didn't have time, or they couldn't afford really clothes from other places on their own. And so I was kind of playing that sort of moral purity game in that way. And so I kind of see a similar thing happening with like people who do war tax resistance, or fast from voting, or not just fast, but believe they never should because it's complicity in something. Like, I get what you're doing here, but I don't think that the divine looks at our culpability like we're responsible to help move these things forward, but we are not guilty in some sense because we're poor and bought a fillet of fish.
Yeah, it's very much that phrase, no ethical consumption under capitalism. That
Ooh, yes, thank you. That's way shorter than what I said.
Well, it sums up a lot of what you just said, I personally am very much like, yeah, I pay my taxes. I also respect the hell out of people who choose not to and the consequences that brings for them. I think, like you said, kind of picking our battles does mean thinking about our specific battles. What gifts do I have and what privileges do I have, and how can they best be used? Because I can't do it all. If I do this one thing and go to prison, then I can't do this other thing that I need to, not be in prison for. Having to make those hard decisions. And wow, like Jesus and Peter, their tax is this one little half shekel. I don't know how much that is, but like it sounds
Very
like a drop
small.
in the it's like a drop in the bucket of what empire is doing. So if anyone's going to be resisting by not paying taxes, I don't know if it needs to be these 2 essentially homeless men. I feel like ultimately it's also just emphasizing the fact that Jesus does not give a crap about money. Like,
yeah, not even a little.
He tells his disciples earlier in Matthew, like, not to bring money with them, right? And now they're like, so taxes? And he's like, yeah, sure, I don't care. I do not care about money.
Give them that.
They want that.
Lucre, whatever.
Yeah,
if they want it,
a fucking
give it
metal
to
and a
them.
fish.
Yeah, I want a gift economy. People, should help each other. This money doesn't freaking matter. So they want it, they can have it, whatever. I wish we could all live like that, God.
That's a good way to sum things up too. Yeah.
All right,
We're ready for 18. Yeah. At that moment, the students came up to Jesus asking, "So, in the heavenly reign, who is the most impressive?" He called a child over to stand between them, and he told them, "Honestly, I'm telling you, unless you turn around, become like children, you will absolutely not join the heavenly reign. Therefore, whoever lowers their own status to be like this child is the most impressive in the heavenly reign. And whoever includes one of these children as my representative includes me. But if anyone creates obstacles for one of these little ones who trust me, it would be preferable for that person to have a huge millstone hung around their neck and dropped into the middle of the sea. The world system that produces such obstacles had better watch out. It's inevitable that obstacles arise, but the person through whom those obstacles arise had better watch out anyway. So if your hand or your foot is an obstacle to you, cut it off and throw it away. It's more beneficial for you to go through life missing a hand or foot than to have 2 hands and 2 feet and be tossed into the fire that burns indefinitely. And if your eye is an obstacle to you, pull it out and throw it away. It's more beneficial for you to go through life with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be tossed into the fiery Hinnom Valley. Be vigilant, not even to think less of one of these little ones. I'm telling you, their messengers in the heavens always have the attention of my Father who is in the heavens. What do you think? If someone comes to own 100 sheep and one of them wanders off, won't they leave the 99 on the mountain and go looking for the one that wandered off? And if they find it, I'm telling you honestly that they'll celebrate over finding it more than over 99 not wandering off. In the same way, your Father who is in the heavens is not willing for even one of these little ones to be forsaken. So if a fellow child of God deviates, go make it clear to them when the 2 of you are alone. If they listen to you, you've regained your fellow child of God. If they don't listen, try again and bring 1 or 2 others with you so that every matter may be established on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they refuse to listen, tell the assembly. If they also refuse to listen to the assembly, as far as you're concerned, let them be just like a foreigner or a tax collector. And that's kind of in the middle of a section, but I'll stop there. Millstones, being thrown into the sea, cutting off body parts. What do y'all think?
Severe imagery.
Yeah, that millstone thing. That, I don't know if y'all have y'all seen this in more fundamentalist spaces. The whole thing about the those who cause little ones to how's it usually to stumble. It would be preferable to have that millstone hung around their neck and dropped in the middle of the sea. Guess whom conservatives often think that's about?
Yeah.
Queer people telling kids it's okay to be queer.
Yeah. People loving their children and children in their lives.
Yeah, essentially. Which sure doesn't seem right to me.
Oh, yeah.
Especially because I don't know that's... I can't imagine that being like that kind of thing went on while Jesus was alive. I'm thinking child abuse has been around forever.
Right. And that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Like, the whole context of this is like, who are we treating as having value or not? Not like encouraging people to do this or that. It's when we're putting an obstacle in front of children, it's not because we're telling them that it's okay for them to do something or not. It's because we are treating them badly. That's how we're an obstacle to them, is we're harming them, we're mistreating them, we're being unkind to them.
Such as telling them false things and dehumanizing things about queerness that they will internalize.
Yeah. Right. If we mistreat them because they're queer, that is putting millstone. That deserves a millstone around my neck.
Honestly. Yeah. I really appreciate, Brandon, that you translate the world as the world system. That I think your footnote mentions, like, this can just mean world. It's cosmos, the cosmos. But that I agree with you in interpreting a lot of times when Jesus is talking about it, that he's talking about the systems in place in our world as it stands today.
Right. Yeah. The more historical language is like world order. It's that is actually where we get cosmetics, because it's at its core the word means like how things are arranged. So you can arrange things on your body. You can the universe is arranged, how the world is arranged. It's all that's where that Greek comes from.
I love learning new etymologies. I never thought about cosmetics that. That's so fun. That's so cool. But yeah, I appreciate like your translation to that makes what it makes stand out for me is the fact that Jesus is saying that, like, he names the systems first, right? That the structures in place that produce these kinds of things, these obstacles, had better watch out that this and then saying like, yeah, like, it's inevitable these obstacles happen because of these systems. This is what we're steeped in. And at the same time, that doesn't absolve you like an individual person. you still shouldn't be the person causing these things. Like, there are going to be people causing these things, so watch out for that. But like, yeah, you can't go, well, everybody's doing it, so it's
Right.
it's the system's fault, so don't blame me.
Yeah. It makes me think
Blaming
of
on the player.
Judas. Like, it's the sense of, like, yeah, it was predicted that
Mm,
the Son of Man, the Son of Humanity, was going to be betrayed, but woe to the one who actually did the betraying. Like, don't, just because it's going to happen, don't be that guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Oh, Judas. I am really interested in. Wait, is it here? Is it the next bit? Oh yeah, getting into the whole, cut off your hands and feet if they're making you do bad things. I'm intrigued by you translating it. It's more beneficial for you to go through life missing a hand or a foot, when it's usually translated to like get into heaven, basically to get into life.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm curious about your reasoning and stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
if
I'd
you want
have
to
to
share.
look through. Okay, well, let me find the Greek.
Yeah, I was looking at the Greek, and it does feel like, to me at least, and I imagine you're probably better versed than I am in Greek. I hope so, given how much you've translated this year
I
about.
hope so too. I'm crossing my
But
fingers here at this point.
yeah, yeah, but like this one, very much like it has like go into is sort of the literal meaning, but I'm absolutely not against going through life. Like why not both?
Yeah. Yeah, the preposition ace can certainly mean into.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what's the verb before it? Okay, yeah, go into, go through. Um, so that is probably the, like, we've talked before about going with just like the first entry in a lexicon for a word. That
Mm-hmm.
is the most commonly used one for translating ace.
Mm-hmm.
But it has like three or four or five, six other ones that are commonly used for it. And then it also kind of like subsumes everything with the preposition "n" can also be applied for ace. Um, and so the "n" when it's about location, whether metaphorically or physically, is kind of this throughout concept. So
Gotcha.
traveling through. So it's not through in the sense of dia, which is kind of like down a tunnel kind of imagery, um, but it's more like this, yeah, the throughout across this whole spectrum of it, um, meaning of it.
That's fun. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and eis erchomai, often translated as enter or go into, um, when it's about something that's more metaphorical, like the heavenly reign, or life. Probably the more sensical way to translate it is like participate in.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Um, when it's physically a space, it makes sense to say enter, but like it's
Mm-hmm.
participate in life, not
Yeah.
enter into life when
Hmm.
it's something more abstract.
I like that. And I like this option, the way you translated it, where it more uh the more obvious meaning is going through this life, that yeah, um versus just worrying about when you get whether you'll get into heaven, right?
Right.
um
Yeah. Which people often make that dichotomous, taking the, well, it must mean heaven because it talks about hell because it has Gehenna
oh
there. But
yeah.
Gehenna is a physical place, the Hinnom Valley, and it's a reference to Jeremiah 19 and 32, I believe, where it's talking about uh, the idolatry of mistreating children. In fact, both of those sections talk about burning your children in the fire. Um, and then the response that comes is conquest by a foreign nation, by Babylon, that comes and destroys everything, and they start piling up bodies because there are too many bodies for them to actually bury. So they pile up the bodies and burn them. So it's saying the people who mistreat children, that's what they have coming for them. It'd be way better to sacrifice something from yourself than to mistreat children and have that coming your way.
Man-head principles.
Yeah. Yeah. Be vigilant not even to think less of one of these little ones, let alone how you talk to them or treat them.
Jesus goes hard. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can tell when he's passionate about something because
Uh-huh.
shit gets intense real fast.
Right.
And it seems to like consistently have escalated as he's becoming more clear about like, okay, I'm turning to Jerusalem now, you know, like he's a little
Right.
snappy.
Yeah. He's like, I don't have time to beat around the bush. I don't have time to
Right.
be gentle. You need to value children as human beings or
Yeah.
else,
Hear me
okay?
clearly.
Yeah.
He's out of fucks
Yeah.
to give.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. He's like, I cannot
Yeah.
risk you misunderstanding this one. So listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say things that may escalate to the end. I'm going to how I'm going to stick the landing here, but that's kind of how it goes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not confident in my word choice there, but I'm saying I'm keeping it.
God, what a mood.
Yeah.
Words are hard.
Words are hard. That could be
Yeah.
the other name for this show.
Yeah.
Words
Both
are
in
hard
English,
with Brandon
Greek,
and Brandon.
all of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, so very intense imagery, including once again using disability as this symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, presumably Jesus isn't saying you should literally cut off your hand or foot. I mean, maybe he would if somehow your hand or foot was literally causing.
I
you
mean,
to
if
lose
that were truly the way to get around this,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole passage, like, I don't really know heads or tails, like how to like so much, like pretty much everything. Again, the healing narratives all over again of when looking at these stories and the things Jesus or other people in the Bible say about disability, it's like, so is this good for disabled people or bad? And the answer is it's really complicated because, I mean, because a million reasons. One, completely different culture. Two, like, I don't know, disability theory is relatively new. It's not like Jesus was, you know, a modern day disability theorist. But I feel like ultimately this passage is sort of a reversal of the normal disability being used to symbolize negative things. Like normally, there's a psalm, it might be Psalm 139, Waters of Babylon one, where we wept, etc., where the speaker says, God, if I should stop being faithful, I'm terribly paraphrasing this, but it's the gist of, God, if I stop being faithful to you, let my tongue cleave to my mouth and cut off my right hand. Basically, if I am faithless, disable me, maim me, which, yeah, again, means it shows your perspective on disability, right? That it's the worst thing you can think of to happen to you.
Yeah.
Which again, not uncommon today. Disability is many people consider the worst thing that could happen to you. And just people who are disabled have to sit with that and through that. But
Yeah.
here Jesus is saying, sorry.
My only thought about like a saving grace around that maybe is that there's just like no accommodations.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. But like the
it's not the condition,
perspective,
but yeah.
yeah, I feel like the perspective informs the culture, informs the perspective, right? Like there are no accommodations because we're not thinking of disabled people as people. And we like today, like in our own times and especially in our own churches, well, why would we spend money? We don't have money in the budget for a ramp and assistive hearing technology. We don't even have deaf people here. So why would we bother? Well, you're
I
never
wonder
going to
why you
have,
don't have deaf people.
yeah, you're never going to have those
Right.
people. I think it's, you know, like that's the issue, is the perspective shapes the reality, shapes the perspective. But
Yeah.
I do think here it is interesting. Like Jesus is showing the disabled state as the better state, that you'd rather be like, it's better to be physically disabled than to have mistreated children. And I do think that would be both shocking and confusing to his people because, and again, it's not like we might not say it out loud, but we have very similar perspectives today that disability is incompatible with being whole. Throughout scripture, especially when you look at some of the legal stuff with what priests can't have certain disabilities, especially ones that are visible, because perfection and disability are considered completely at odds. And Jesus is saying, no, you will be more whole if you have no feet than if you mistreat children. You are taking chunks out of your own soul when you do that. So like, actually, like, disability isn't incompatible with a good life. Hurting kids is.
Right.
And
that makes me think of, sorry.
No, you go.
Yeah. I mean, that makes me think of chapter 15, where he's talking about what's really unclean or clean. And these physical disabilities were considered unclean. And Jesus is like, no, the stuff that has to do with your body, that's not it. It's how you treat people. It's how you talk to people.
Yep.
And that's the clear message of 15. And then it leads into this. And again, it's not missing a hand or a foot that makes you unclean. It's how you treat children that makes you unclean. And leading soon into chapter 2021 and the triumphal entry, where he starts quoting verses from the Hebrew Bible that include disability. And he's pissed off at the people that are filling up this place where people who are disabled and therefore unclean are allowed to come because they can't go any further. It's like, this is the only place that people can come and like worship God and do their temple stuff, and you're filling it with commerce and animals instead. Like, yeah, way to go, guys.
Indeed. So like this, it is an interesting passage. Where, and I will, so when it is translated in a way that makes the interpretation more towards focusing on getting into heaven, I also think it's really interesting to have they pop up every now and then throughout scripture, places where it is implied that disability exists in heaven, because a very common prevailing belief in the Bible and in Christianity today is that disabilities will be removed, usually described as healed or cured. That because every tear will be wiped away, all the suffering will be done. And so, of course, that must mean disability, because what is disability but endless suffering? Which, if that's your view on disability in heaven, how are you treating disabled people in your communities today when they symbolize not heaven for you, unless they can magically be cured? And then you can celebrate with them because then they're a symbol of heaven. So it is fun. Like, obviously, there's a lot more stories or verses in both the Hebrew Bible and the Gospels and the letters about the blind will see and the lame will walk and all of that. But there's places like this where there's sort of a different implication. There's a few I'm not going to be able to name the actual places, but like Isaiah and the Psalms have a few places where it's implied that like, and it kind of works mostly because they're not really talking about heaven as much as the exiles returning home, literally, but like that God will make the ways smooth so that disabled people can get through easily. And so there's disabled people getting there and living there, and there's no mention of them being cured in order for all that to take place. So this is probably the weirdest one, though, where they're like, yes, there are disabled people in heaven for a wacky reason.
But I like the idea that the heavenly reign is a society in which all people are accommodated.
Yeah, absolutely. And celebrated,
because otherwise you got piles of bodies in the Hidden Valley.
I guess that's the note we can end on.
Hell yeah. Yeah welcome. Accommodate everyone, or
burn in hell.
Change your hearts or die.
Yeah, we're escalating too. Well, thank you everybody for your company for this leg of the journey, and thank you, Avery Arden, for sharing your wisdom today. The easiest way to support Found in Translation is to leave us a rating or review, whatever app or player or website you have been enjoying this on, especially YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Their robots help other people find this, and that you found value in it. You can find us on Facebook as Found in Translation. You can read the Liberation and Inclusion Translation at www.litbible.net and follow its development on Threads as @lit.bible. You can follow Brandon Johnson on Blue Sky as @litbible.net. You can follow me on Threads or Blue Sky as @BDRhodes. Avery, where is the best way for people to find you?
The only social media I'm on very frequently is Tumblr. So if you're one of the few people who uses Tumblr in 2025, I'm at blessedarethebinarybreakers.tumblr.com. Or you could just go on my website, blessedarethebinarybreakers.com, which will lead you. Oh God, I have two websites because that one's where I've got my podcast, where I share interviews and other stories of like trans people and faith, and that's all sorts of faiths, not just Christianity. And yeah, if you go there, you'll find links to the social medias that I'm almost never on, but if you want to follow me on them, I won't say no.
What's the name of the podcast?
Blessed Are the Binary Breakers.
Love it. Great. Yeah. Music you're listening to is by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Founding Translation was produced on unceded Chinook and Kalapuya land. Goodbye, Brandon.
Bye, Brandon.
Bye, Avery. Bye, everybody.